It's all right. I can cut it too. And it's not like it's something that needs to go into the show. I just thought it'd be a fun thing to respond. After all my griping, I just turn around and order a fucking beast of a machine.
I know, right? that's it's that's that's one way to handle it.
Well, I have such a fear of the next couple of years of iteration of software really taking advantage of the architecture that I'm afraid going what's great now just isn't going to give me the longevity that I want out of a machine. And so the best way for me to hopefully protect against that a little bit is to say, okay, what's just massive overkill for me today? And I should be good for a while.
Yeah. Did you happen to catch the live edition of the talk show?
I didn't catch it live, but I did watch it.
I didn't catch it live either, but I watched it as well. The thing that oh man, now I'm trying to remember who was it. I guess it was Craig Federighi that said it, or no, might have been the John Turnus who was talking about the memory. I can't remember. One of the two was talking about how with the Apple Silicon, you just the memory goes so much further.
Yeah, I think some of it was with Turnus. It is Turnus, right?
Yeah. I think it was Turnus, and they were referring to when Gruber was asking him about the Mac Pro.
Yeah, I think so.
Because the question was specifically like something about going from an absurd amount of RAM could be configured for the Intel Mac Pro, which was, I think it maxed out at 1.5 terabytes, which does sound absurd. And because now the maximum amount of RAM in a Mac Pro is going to be 196 gigabytes. Wait, 196 or 192?
192.
196. 192, yeah. And I think it was Turnus who was saying, it's not fair to compare the gigabyte per gigabyte on between Apple Silicon and Intel. It's a completely different architecture, and it's handled so much differently. And that kind of harkens to the days where they would talk about like the G4, G5 days, where they would talk about how gigahertz was, they called it the folks at Apple, specifically Steve Jobs. I can remember him talking about the gigahertz myth.
Yeah, I mean, we tend to do it with so many different things. Like we've done it with photography and the megapixel ideas that's bigger is better or more is better. And there's always a different approach, and there's always a adjustment to understanding what we've known and how that translates to whatever the next thing is. I'm starting to have a little bit of a better feel, I think, for some of that translation, but it's going to take some time. And I don't even know that it would be as much of a translation between the pre-Apple Silicon mindset and era as much as it is just an adjustment to understanding the relationship between what the Apple Silicon specs mean and what I can do. It's almost how much, I don't know how much of it's going to end up being an ability to interpret and translate versus just learning new behavior, I guess, is a way to think of it.
That makes sense.
What I did do, something I haven't done in a long time, I reinstalled iStat menus so that I could try to get a feel and understanding for what actually happens, just from a performance perspective. Like, can I fill up the memory usage, for example, if I'm doing something, or is it pretty much never going to be something that I touch with my workflows? And things like that, just to try to get a better feel for it. It's something I did forget how fun it is to see that sometimes too, so that's a nice little bonus. But
I haven't run iStat menus in ages.
Yeah, I hadn't either. And even though I had a current version, it's one of the companies that I enjoyed the product enough. I tend to, when I think about it, I would go upgrade just for the sake of supporting the company. And so I had done that with five, and I even did paid for the weather subscription for a year that's long since expired that I never used.
So far pleased with it?
Yes. One of the biggest things that I've been pleased with is just having something that the battery actually lasts if I'm doing any real work.
What about your keyboard? How you like that keyboard?
It feels a little different, but not bad. But I've also been using an external keyboard with the 15, not my personal one, but the work one. And it feels similar enough going back and forth between those two that it doesn't bug me. I think if I were going back and forth between this one and the built-in keyboard, it would bug me more.
Do you have any plans of upgrading your work one?
Yeah, I need to finally do it. I just don't want to set everything back up. I have so many things that I've edited to make stuff work that I don't even remember what all I have to do anymore to make things work. It would be a couple of days or more of figuring out what to actually bring over, what I can bring over, or just set things up from scratch again. And I just don't look forward to it. But at the same time, I've got to finally replace it. The fact that I have to stay tethered just it makes for an annoying working experience.
Oh, I started getting emails about. I started getting non-compliance emails. Different from the last time I got non-compliance emails. I don't know. Did you get one?
Not so far.
Okay, I got one on Friday.
Or if I have received one, it has been filtered out, so I haven't seen it. So maybe I should check other filters and see.
Yeah. I got nothing else on computers. Actually, I could probably talk a lot more about computers. I just nothing worth listening to. Well, nothing worth recording.
I understand.
Nothing worth recording and putting into a show. We can record it all day long. It doesn't make a difference. But as long as it's not worth getting off the cutting room floor. That's what I'm looking for. To use a term that is now all but. What is it? Okay, so there's no cutting room floor anymore, but it's a term because there was literally a cutting room floor, and I guess it was more. I guess cassettes had film too, so or cassettes had tape. So reels to reels. So what is it when we say a thing? It means a thing, and it was literal, and now it's completely figurative.
And I know obsolete is the technology is obsolete, but
Yeah.
I'm
But
blanking on the word for the vocabulary piece being no longer relevant.
It's almost like the language version of skeuomorphism. I don't know what I'm sure I believe that there's a word for that. Maybe I'm wrong.
Well, there is a word to reference outdated terms, but I don't remember. I mean, you could think of it as being archaic, of course, but that's not what you're looking for. I've heard the word that you're talking about, though, at some point.
Yeah, the word is not. I mean, the term is not outdated at all. The term is, I think, completely relevant, but just the actual literal, rather it was a literal thing that conveyed a particular idea, a literal thing that conveyed a particular idea, and now the idea is still being conveyed, but it's no longer the literal actions are no longer exist.
I'm pretty sure the folks over at Webster's would know.
All right, anyone listening from Webster's Dictionary, please email Jesse.
Yep, I'll take any and all feedback.
Contact me via telepathy. I actually don't, because I don't have a telepathy receiver. It's merely a joke at the end of it.
So I know last week we teased a topic.
We did.
I want to explore it, but I don't know that I'm equipped to explore it. So I think that it's the perfect thing to bring to a conversation. The problem is that I don't know if it's going to be 5 minutes or 5 hours worth of conversation.
We've never done 5 hours, but it's definitely not going to be. It's definitely going to be more than 5 minutes.
Yeah, just have to put the hyperbole in for fun.
I forgot about that. That's also not the word I'm looking for.
It's also not what?
It's not the word I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Hey, go ahead.
No,
I'll ask this.
You were about to ask something. We haven't started into the topic at all, so.
It's completely unrelated to anything ever that we've talked about. Maybe. Do you know the... I feel stupid asking now. I just was looking at a thing, the way I run my wire from my microphone through my boom arm, and the wire management's okay, but I would really like some unbranded clips that Peak Design sent with the car mount. I would really like that. That's what I'm looking for. So I've searched for it, and the best results I found were you can buy I think a three pack of those branded Peak Design branded wire clips from them.
Yeah, I don't know that I've ever seen anything similar to those.
They might have made them themselves, but I think they're so unobtrusive and small, and just they do what they need to do and they're out of the way, and just that would work really, really nicely for.
Yeah, I'm just using Velcro. Or hook and clasp closure. Yeah.
Little V Velcro.
I'm not 100% certain if it's official Velcro or off-brand.
Do you say Kleenex or tissue?
Normally tissue.
Yeah, me too. Do you say vacuum or Hoover?
Vacuum.
I never Hoover. I only vacuum. But really, vacuum clean is probably the better.
I have known many people that refer to the vacuum cleaner as the Hoover because it was such a dominant brand for so long.
Are they British? Because I know that the British people say, I'm going to go Hoover the living room.
No, it's very common in my interactions in the South in general. Now some of that may be like British descent.
Yeah.
I mean, that's certainly an option because on my mother's side, there's a very strong English influence genealogically.
I'm going to go Dyson I'm going to go Dyson my hands. Okay, I'm ready.
Okay, so the topic we teased was talking about not specifically any one aspect of transgender care for minors or anything within the community as a whole, but more the thought process that I had as a parent. How do you both approach something that you don't understand, such as the issues surrounding people who identify as transgender, and being supportive and being positive and not really knowing how to do so. You don't want to say the wrong thing and sound like you're being condescending if that is not your intent, right? It's the same thing with other things in general. Like, this is not a unique thing necessarily as a parent to consider something around the transgender community or the LGBTQ plus community as a whole. It's more the specific article that I saw was talking about a judge banning or blocking Florida's ban on the transgender care for minors, at least temporarily. And the article prompted the thought of this thought process. Like, it wasn't anything specific to the article either, but that's what made its way into the show notes. That I wanted to talk about it and explore it, but I have no clue what I want to talk about and explore. It's such a difficult thing to try to imagine yourself in when you're not in that situation, And on top of it, you don't truly understand what that situation entails. Again, because one, you have no direct experience with that situation, and two, you're not in that situation. Um, but it could be one day. Who knows, right? And that's what prompted the thought. And I don't even know how to segue it into the conversation from there, other than to just have the open conversation about it.
I mean, my first thought on this is like, who the hell is anyone to tell you that this is or to ban medical care? This is. I mean, this is the same as women's mental health issues. Who the hell is anyone that goes to work as an elected official to tell you what you are or are not allowed to do with your medical issues?
Yeah, I have a whole
or medical treatment.
I have a whole separate rant on that because
I'm sure
the medical community has made it very clear that transgender care is very important and absolutely leads to positive outcomes and reduces counts of suicide, depression, etc. There are many positive effects. If you take any action against that, you very clearly do not value a person's life over just saying, no, I don't understand it, I don't like it, you can't do it. Which is literally the only case you can make for banning any kind of medical care for any person. Full stop.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's my concise version.
Yeah.
But it's only because while I could rant on that and I could absolutely rail against some of this just stupid stuff that we have seen, I really do want to get a better feeling for what does it mean to encounter these things, whether it's dealing with homosexuality. Actually, that one I kind of wrap my head around better than what the transgender aspect. That one in particular, I just don't have a grasp of what it means. And so, while I can use homosexuality as another idea to try to talk about it and extract concepts, I don't want to make it sound like I'm trying to compare them. But as a parent, dealing with these things that I have not directly dealt with, trying to figure out how to navigate that's more the conversation that I find interesting than ranting against how stupid a number of elected officials are with regard to just a full-on crusade against logic and science and all things good.
I think at the end of the day, and the beginning of the day too,
maybe even midday really, if it strikes your fancy.
Yeah, everywhere in between, all the waking hours. It's important that we pay attention. We pay attention to our own children, and when we enter into a realm or a place where we are uncomfortable or just new ground, like it's important to seek out the right type of help. And I've watched as one of the classmates of one of my children has identified differently, or is currently identifying differently, not gone through puberty, but identifying differently than their assigned gender at birth. So the thing I don't know a lot about is like I don't know where they are with regard to their sexuality. I don't know where they are with regard to their own sex organs, and it's quite frankly none of my fucking business. But I know the parents of this child well enough that I believe that they are making absolutely the right decisions in reaffirming the re-identification of their child. And I trust that they are seeking the right sort of psychological help or therapy, or let me back up and say just the right type of therapy is needed for living in a society that pretty strongly believes in, well, at times try to shove down your throat a gender binary instead of a more open and accepting community. I think they probably this child probably, knowing the parents and who the parents associate with, I expect that this child is getting a lot of reaffirming experiences. But I just remember like actually seeing it happening. I was just like, ooh, are they making the right? Is this and I was like, yeah, it is. They know their child better than I do, and I fully trust that they love and want the best for their child, and they are seeking out all of the right resources to publicly make this change, or adjust their identity. Rather, it's not a change, just adjusting how they're identifying.
And I think this is where I have so much more difficulty figuring out the difference between how I view people and behavior in general, just as an overall, we'll just say student of behavior, as opposed to what it actually means to consider yourself transgender. And what I mean by that is I don't believe in binary concepts of masculinity and femininity in the first place. We ascribe those behaviors to things because of either historical precedent or a lot of times misguided thought processes. Like there are plenty of reasons to think that what we attribute as male or female behaviors are just BS. That's not to say there aren't differences. It's just to say that they're not technically inherent behaviors of a biological sex, with the exception of like nursing or something that has a physiological component that is tied to biological sex. But you don't have to be male to be aggressive. You don't have to be female to be caring and nurturing. All of these things that we ascribe some level of male or female trait to is just kind of nonsense at the end of the day. And so,
well, it might cause more problems than it solves.
It does, and there have been plenty of studies that have talked about how something isn't innocuously seeming as talking about boy and girl colors can lead to detrimental effects in general on how we perceive things. There's a whole fascinating world of study out there about how you can influence these thoughts of what are male or female traits subconsciously. And knowing that, I've always tried to have the approach and mindset that human behavior is human behavior. Doesn't matter whether you're male or female, you can exhibit that behavior if you are human. If you're not human, well, then maybe it doesn't apply to you. But with that kind of framework, I don't understand why you would consider yourself he, him, she, her, that kind of different identification, unless you believed there were certain things that were only male or female behaviors or feelings or thoughts. Does that make sense?
I think so.
But I do understand the difference between I physiologically have these organs and I don't feel like I should and want to undergo procedures to change that to what extent possible, which is kind of the extreme version of what we think of when we think of a transgender person. Or at least that seems to be the general perception society ascribes. And I may just be biased in how I interpret it based on, being in the South where, you think of a guy dressing up in a dress as transgender for some reason. But
yeah, but that's transvestism. It's a different thing.
Yeah, it just trying to wade what actually does it mean to be transgender, or trying to decipher what does it actually mean to be transgender in the South is a difficult thing in and of itself, even when you're open-minded and trying to be cognizant of it. The biggest question that I keep coming back to is what does it actually mean? Because what I am exposed to it meaning I know is inaccurate, and what I think I can get to logically doesn't fit. And I just haven't had. At some point, I will have to find someone who is specifically identifies as transgender and just ask, "Can you just describe things to me and let me see if it makes sense?" But I don't want to be, offensive in doing that either. um, and so that is the one that is for me very difficult to wrap my head around. And I don't want to make it a show all about trying to define what it is either. It's because that's not the thought process that came into mind. But I wanted to set the stage for why I find this particular thing difficult to approach from a parenting standpoint if it were to happen. Because if I can't understand it enough to uh, relate some concept to what that means and what that would be from either a combination of behavior or mental processes, thoughts, etc., I can't really be supportive of it in the right fashion because I don't know what path to navigate for uh, a child in this particular scenario to be, appropriate. Would that be medical care? Would it be psychological care? Would it be none of the above and going to see some other, person or specialist or whatever? Or would it be none of the above and it's just a supportive family environment based on whatever combination of thoughts and behaviors are occurring? It's navigating that unknown is more the focus of what I at least leapt to and have no frame of reference for, and figured it would be at least interesting enough to speculate, even if we don't get to any kind of thought process or answer for until one of us has to deal with it firsthand.
I gotta say that it's everything I've said so far I'm okay with, but it's a really tricky subject to talk about, and I'm often kind of concerned that I'll say the wrong thing.
Same, and that's part of what prompted the thought as well. And I'm often reminded of this particular thing, that if you are concerned about saying or doing the right thing, typically you're saying or doing the right thing. It may not necessarily be the right words, but the right motivation and behaviors to get to the right point are there because you're trying to do the right thing. The people who do the wrong thing tend to be the ones that don't care whether they're doing the right thing.
That's true.
And I only say that as the way to frame that I completely agree. And the only way that I can make sense of it is just to say, well, if I'm concerned about it and I want to make sure I'm supportive, I know that that's going to come across, or that concern and empathy will come across. I know that will get there. I may say the wrong thing. I may create a lot of difficult scenarios getting to that point, inadvertently, subconsciously, however it happens. But I know without a doubt that if this was a scenario that I was faced with, my desire to be supportive would absolutely come across in translation somehow. See, this is why I didn't know if it would be 5 minutes or.
Yeah, no. The only thing the thing I thought about was, or maybe the thing that might be a little bit tricky is being I've heard it. I think I've heard it referenced in terms of people attempting to be allies for people of color. Maybe the white liberal. That might be the term I'm looking for. Where sometimes it's tricky being the white liberal is a tricky place to be because they're far enough along in their thinking that they think they've gotten it right, but they're still not listening to the minority and are getting some pretty important things wrong, or I guess the concern is being, well, I guess the concern is being is like, at least I'm not as bad as those bad guys. Like but it's not even that kind of phrase isn't even saying, but it's thinking, oh, like, I'm not like those guys over there, and look how good I am, and being sort of in the middle. It's like, well, you're not all the way. Yeah, maybe you aren't like those bad guys, but maybe that is problematic because you're tricking yourself, or you have this false sense of belief that you are understanding. And so, yeah, that's a concern that I have.
I think that segues a little bit into an easier way to think about it, or not about any one specific thing, but philosophically how you approach things. We tend to overemphasize progress a lot of times at the individual level. We recognize, or learn something, or have a much greater understanding of something than we did have, and we tend to kind of stall in our understanding of it from that point forward, unless we are the type of person to intentionally kind of reset and take a step back and say, okay, I've made progress, but what other questions does this promote, or what other insights does this lead me toward? Most people instead will be very happy with going from, I used to do X, Y, and Z, and now look at me, I've corrected those behaviors, and I'm so much better than I used to be. And at a fundamental philosophical level, it makes sense, right? Because it may feel like a radical shift in thought and behavior for you as an individual. But for you as an individual, while that might be true, in the grand scheme of this thing, maybe it's a 1% change, maybe it's a 50% change. It could be fairly significant. But we don't tend to look at the overall item and what the full spectrum of extremes and middle ground and all of these interplay of relationships actually mean. We instead look at, oh, this is what I thought, this is what I think now. Great. I can chalk that off the list of things that I need to understand, and I'm so much better than I was.
Right. There's a threshold where it doesn't really matter that it's like, kill all the, whatever it is that you don't like is not nearly as bad as like, let's something that's not killing but also not
sterilizing,
promoting. Yeah. So I mean, you don't have to be at the extreme to still be terrible, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And there's like some threshold, there's some line where it's like everything on that side of the line, we'll consider all of that bad, and everything on this side of the line is not bad. And it's like if you're right on the line, even then it's like, ooh, maybe you're still not you still got work to do. So just because you're not the worst doesn't mean you're okay. It's like, right. So it's like, just because your fascist country hasn't started systematically killing a particular race doesn't mean that you're good. That some of these, this might be a little bit problematic, but just
No,
because you're not as bad as the
I
worst
mean,
doesn't make you good, is what I'm trying to say, I guess.
I only laugh because like there's so many different things that I thought about piping in and saying as examples that it's so easy to come up with them. And the one that I thought of right before you mentioned that was the systematic attempt to extinguish a particular group of people. And I mean that's a classic example of we consider this evil and vile, and it's an absolute non-starter for pretty much anything positive, right? And but then I think of how many times in history have even we as a country done things that are pretty terrible, and we haven't been a country very long. But you think about the early days of mental health support, if you can call it that, or you think about the sterilization campaigns for what's the term for? Oh, shoot, I lost it. I had it on. Either way, there have been sterilization campaigns in the United States for certain groups of people, and brain surgery on prisoners, like removing the frontal pieces of the frontal lobe and things that are just not
Barbaric.
good, but they're not, extermination.
Well, I think at this country's worst, we're just as bad as at I don't know. I can't just as bad as any other country at its worst. You can look at Nazi Germany. How is what they did any worse than what the United States did to the indigenous people of this continent? So we often I think is it Godwin's law. Argument goes long enough, somebody will incite Hitler or Nazi Germany, but not to be trite, but it's like, in all seriousness, I don't think that at its worst, this country has been just as bad as any other country at its worst.
Yeah, I agree, and the only reason I didn't have a response is because there really isn't a response. I mean, we've done plenty of terrible things, both domestically and around the world.
Mm-hmm.
Part of that is the inherent bias of people against people they don't understand or don't know or think are different. And part of it is that there will always be people who make bad decisions and are not concerned with the outcome.
I know it's been said many times, but I'm going to quote a line from the beginning of a movie that I like called The Boondock Saints.
I'm good with that.
Yeah, it's the only thing that is needed for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing, for good people to do nothing. I'll change. If good people do nothing, evil will triumph.
We must all fear evil men. But there is another kind of evil which we must fear most, and that is the indifference of good men.
We have a number of different ways set up for you to get in touch with us to provide feedback, ask questions, or just comment in about something we've discussed.
You can hit us up on Twitter or Instagram at untitled_hosts, or shoot an email over to untitled.hosts@gmail.com.
Or get in touch directly with Jesse at jthart.com, or get in touch with me, John, via telepathy.
If you would like to support our work or are interested in listening to our new after-show feed, head over to patreon.com/theUntitledPodcast and take a look at the options we have set up.
Thank you for listening.
We hope you've enjoyed the show.
And we hope to connect with more of you as we continue this journey.
That's a wrap. And I don't specifically have, like, we can make that the official end of the show, and then if there's something else that's worth it, I can drop it in as a bonus piece.
That's cool.
Because I don't really have anything else to say. It's just,
I don't think so either.
For some reason, I just cannot wrap my head around what it means to be transgender. And it's not that I need to understand it. It's that because of the conversations, and same thing with, understanding people of color's arguments and everything else. Like, it's a current event. It's something that I see often enough now that even though I know what side of it I'm on, it sparks okay, I know I'm on this side of, yes, gender affirming care is a positive, should absolutely be available. Yes, you as an individual have every right to explain things about how you feel and think, etc. What does it mean? Like, how can I correlate this at least to something that I can understand well enough to properly support, like I can do with racism or discrimination? Like, I'm not directly going to experience it in the same way. And I'm not going to experience, being transgender in the same way. But there's got to be some point of reference that I can at least kind of circle around.
My best guess, I know a few transgendered folks. I know I've got friends who, I guess the best I could guess is, like, the place where I've seen, where do you start in understanding, is read what other transgender folks have written and what their experiences were like.
So I have noticed there have been a lot of articles popping up about Elliot Page recently. I haven't read them, but I don't remember seeing near as much being front and center prior to the past week or so. And I don't know if it's coincidental timing or if it's because of activism, or a level of activism in the wake of the different states' assaults on transgender care.
I think the thing about it is, this is a thing that people live through, and they've lived through it for millennia, and this is only the first time in our history where folks have been able to start publicly expressing how they feel. And it's not a thing that's going to go away. It's just a thing that's going to require a fight, because there are too many people that don't want to understand. That's all it comes down to. It's not that, they don't want to understand, and they don't want to be okay with something that makes them, that they don't understand. I don't even think that they give it a chance to consider that somebody is different from them. And it's because a lot of people in this country, and I don't actually have no idea what trans issues are like in other countries, but there's so many people in this country that are just like, this just sort of obstinance of like, I don't want anything in front of my eyes or entering my ears that has anything to do that doesn't already support the things that make me feel good about me. It's a very non-empathetic way to live. And, we saw this, whether it was wearing a face mask during a pandemic when you go out publicly, or whether it was, I mean, just that alone was just like hugely.
Yeah, I hate Americans. I mean, it just
right.
They're so, and that's overly broad too. There are plenty of good Americans out there. I will make sure that, just in case I pull this in, that I make that clarification.
I hate this American mindset.
Yes,
this very. And it's sometimes it might not even be entirely fair to just label it as American, but this is I hate this part of the human condition. This what has the number of humans that are so unempathetic about things. Like, I don't consider myself to be that empathetic of a person, and but it's more than, but it's not zero empathy.
I will wholeheartedly embrace that I am too sarcastic a person to really be considered a truly empathetic individual. But I do also recognize that I have a conscience and I do have empathy toward other people. So it's a balancing act. But the big thing that I just don't get, the part that I don't understand and can't agree with in any way, shape, fashion, or form, is this mindset that because someone is different, it's an assault on my principles or my beliefs. And that's such horseshit.
It really is. You know, I can remember talking to folks and not about well, specifically about abortion, medical abortion. And there was like, you know, I don't want my tax dollars going to people getting, you know, murdering babies. And I'm like, what do you mean your tax dollars? As soon as you pay taxes, they are no longer your dollars. You earn those dollars and then they were taxed. Now they become the government's, so not your money. So none of your money is going towards anything that you don't like, except unless you spend it on something you don't like. And so there's this idea, I was like, well, if I pay into the system has to do what I want. And I'm like, that's not incorrect in the sense that maybe if you can cast your vote in a certain direction, but if the rest of us are casting our vote in the direction that you don't like, whether it is about abortion or medical care for trans kids or paving the road, you don't get a say. If we all, if the majority of us think that it's one way or the, honestly, it's like, even when the majority of the people want to say, let's do this, it's really the corporations that are getting a say right now. That's a whole other thing.
Yeah, we've referenced that before.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit, but I mean, yes, I don't understand that mindset either. I do get the mindset that if I'm paying taxes to, let's say, we'll keep it small scale for the sake of the example, but if I'm paying taxes to a municipality and I have issues with the condition of the roads in that municipality, I should be able to request or lodge a complaint or make my opinion known. That's fine.
Yeah.
But I can't dictate that municipality do anything. That's a whole separate thing.
Right. But this is even beyond that, where it's like, not only, it's like, it's not just saying, hey, can you fill in the pothole in my road? It's like, please don't fill in the pothole in other people's roads ever, because they're unworthy of having their potholes filled. That's the sentiment here.
Yeah. That's a good way to take the analogy to the correct point.
I mean, the only thing that you should be saying about other people's potholes is like, hey, when are they going to get their potholes filled? Like, that's that should be our only concern. It's like, hey, my pothole is filled, or my pothole is going to be filled. When are they going to get their pothole filled?
Well, and to take this back to the topic at hand in general, like the same rationale or reasoning should be, when are these people going to get the care and assistance they need?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I don't. It's like, what is? It's like there are people that just don't think that other people should exist if they aren't like you, if they don't affirm who you are as at least, like, it's like people that don't affirm your existence are, shouldn't exist.
Well, I don't know if you've heard about this thing called labels.
Yeah, right.
It's like these people don't have the same label as me. They shouldn't have air or food or water or anything. It's such a ridiculous idea. It's funny how well we can bring so many conversations together into this one thing, honestly.
Oh yeah, it all.
But it's also kind of silly how all of the conversations can end up in the same point. Be a fucking decent human being for a change.
That is, yeah. There's probably like a list of 5, something that you can list on 5 things. It's like, if we keep talking long enough, we're going to start talking about one of these 5 things. It's like how you click on the links in Wikipedia enough times, you will get to philosophy.